So I just had a few thoughts with the recent Academy Award nominations that were announced over a week ago. As is the case almost every year, as we all know, there's always big surprises, there's always big snubs, or what you consider to be a big snub, depending on the likelihood of that presumed nominee possibly winning the category that they were competing for. For me, there were a few noticeable major snubs. I want to start off with a huge congratulations to the historical record-breaking nominations for Sinners. That was an incredible accomplishment. I never in my lifetime imagined I would see a movie that would probably exceed the record of 14 nominations that had been held by All About Eve, Titanic, and then La La Land. Now, I'm blown away by this. As many of you know who watch this channel, Sinners was probably my number one movie of the year, especially for the first half of the year. But although I do consider it a masterpiece, I think it's destined to be a all-time great classic. Destined to not only be a modern classic, but also an all-time great. I'm a major supporter of the film. One Battle After Another, though, probably took its spot for me on a personal level as the best film of the year, as obviously that film is up for 13 Academy Award nominations, which is also an incredible accomplishment. Very well deserved. Whoever wins Best Picture, I'm not going to be upset if Sinners does take it. I hopefully that it is One Battle After Another, just because I'm one of those supporters that believes that that film is an all-time great, and it takes so many touches of so many brilliant classic movies that came before it, and it just feels like you put a whole bunch of films into a blender and created your own story out of it, and a brilliant story at that. But I'll do a review on One Battle sometime and go into more details of my thoughts of One Battle After Another's influences. Now, the 13 nominations, all very well deserved. One in particular was glaringly apparent that was omitted from those 13 nominations, and that was for the performance of who I believe is a huge star in the making, Chase Infinity. Now, Chase, as you all know, has received incredible recognition throughout this whole award season. I mean, she's been nominated for lead actress at the Golden Globe Awards, the Critics' Choice Awards, the Actors Awards, and then most recently this morning, the BAFTAs. So it's kind of mind-boggling how she was snubbed. Somehow she was, and it's very disheartening because she is the definition of A Star is Born. For her to hold her own against two all-time great veteran actors in Leonardo DiCaprio and Sean Penn in a brilliant movie filled with Oscar winners, including Benicio del Toro and soon-to-be Oscar winner, I hope, with Tiana Taylor, who obviously, has a great chance of walking away with the supporting actress Oscar for this film, and would be very well deserved, as I would say between her or Amy Madigan, those would be my picks. But Chase being snubbed was a huge mistake on the Academy's part. I've been really supporting her ever since seeing Presumed Innocent. And I just, when you could tell when you're watching a star being born and somebody who's going to be one of the greats one day, and Chase is that. But there were other omissions too. While say what you want, if you did prefer the first Wicked over Wicked for Good, but for the first movie to be nominated for, I believe, 10 Academy Awards, and for Wicked for Good to be nominated for 0, I don't know, guys. That was kind of crazy to me. I'm not saying it should have been up for 10 Oscars, but from a technical standpoint, I mean, the costume design, the visual effects, the production design, and the makeup work that was done with Tin Man and Scarecrow in particular were all Oscar worthy of being nominated. So I don't know what went wrong there. I'm in the minority here, where in some regards I might have actually preferred certain things about Wicked for Good even over the first one, even though I do think the first is a better movie. But I don't know. I'm kind of like with the thought process of thinking in some areas For Good was even a little bit deeper in some respects, but for it to walk away with 0 nominations was very controversial. And then we go on to some of the more, family friendly type movies that were great blockbusters this past year. How to Train Your Dragon, to have 0 nominations was very surprising to me, because I thought for sure that the visual effects and perhaps the costume and design would have been up for Oscars too. Very surprised to see that snub. Certainly, Jurassic World Rebirth getting the nomination. That was great to see. I was happy about that. I was happy about seeing F1 starring Brad Pitt and Damson Idris get nominated for a surprising Best Picture nomination, which was very well deserved, as F1 was, probably in my top five movies of last year, behind One Battle, Sinners, Frankenstein, Weapons. It was more than likely probably in my top five for the year. But I was surprised to see that get a nomination, but I was also very happy, and made sense as it basically had a similar dynamic and quality to it that Top Gun Maverick had. So that nomination was very well deserved. I was very, very glad to see that. Predator Badlands scoring zero nominations was very weird to me all award season. I don't know what movie everyone watched, but those visual effects were unbelievable. And it just kind of blew me away that at none of these award shows did it get nominated for best visual effects, which was very surprising to me, or even sound design and some other nominations. But as is always the case, something's always left out. No other choice, zero nominations. That was shocking. I was happy to see Elle Fanning get nominated, receive her first nomination in her career, as she has been one of my favorite actresses of her generation. I think she's one of the best of her generation. So that was great to finally see her receive a nomination for supporting actress. I love seeing both Sean Penn and Benicio receive nominations for supporting actor, as well as Jacob Elordi for Frankenstein, who Jacob, I believe, along with Timothy Chalamet, Austin Butler, and a few others, is going to be one of the very best actors of his generation for many, many years to come. So it's great to see him receive a nomination early on in his career, and we know he's going to receive many, many more, just based on how tremendously talented he is. So that was great to see. I was happy to also see, a lot of the animated films get acknowledged too this year. Obviously, Zootopia 2. It may not win this year like the first one did. It's up against some very stiff competition, but it's still great to see it get nominated. Um, it was just a great year. Begonia, I thought was brilliant. I recently bought a copy of it. I thought what Emma Stone and also Jesse Plemons did in that movie was just brilliant. It sort of felt kind of Rod Serling 60s era Twilight Zone esque in some areas. Very well made film. But it should be interesting. There's many other snubs too that we can kind of bring up too. Obviously as well. But a lot of the great surprises and acknowledgement too for Emma Stone, having, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, seven nominations at only age 37 or so, the youngest actress to achieve that. And I think five of those are for acting. So that is an incredible accomplishment at such a young age. And I think that broke the previous record held by one of the greatest of all time, Meryl Streep. So I was glad to see that. Obviously, Timothy Chalamet, who I would love to see win Best Actor for Marty Supreme, even though I love what Leonardo DiCaprio did in One Battle After Another. It was probably the funniest we've ever seen him in a movie. But Timothy really does deserve this award. He acted his heart out. Say what you want about him, but the kid is putting in the work, and he's getting the roles, and he's delivering, and his commitment to the craft is very, very inspiring, because there's not a lot of actors of his generation, I think, currently, outside of maybe, Austin Butler and Jacob Elordi and, Barry Keoghan and Robert Pattinson and a few others, Tom Holland, that are really, really digging deep. But, it's great to see. It's great to see Michael B. Jordan finally receive his first Academy Award nomination, as, I felt years ago he should have been nominated for Fruitvale Station. But I thought in some ways Sinners might have been a career best for Michael B. And obviously playing two characters and brilliantly making each twin between Smoke and Stack so distinctly different. I thought that was brilliant, but it's great to finally see him get nominated. I've been critical, even though I've been a major supporter of him, but I've been critical over the years with some of the performances, and perhaps, I always felt like a little bit of a lack of range in some roles, or not being right for certain characters, even though he's always had charisma, he's always had a swagger and, the look of a true movie star on screen. But sometimes the range has always been a little bit of a criticism for me in regards to him. But I think he 100% silenced that with Sinners, because that was such a lived-in performance. And it's his rival as one of the best actors working today easily. So I'm glad to finally see him score that nomination. And then also back to Chalamet to become the youngest three-time Academy Award nominee for Best Actor since Marlon Brando, who, in my opinion, is one of the greatest of all time, probably a top five actor of all time on my list. That is an incredible accomplishment. So I was really happy to see that. Um, but there's so much to be said here. Obviously, there's a lot of disappointment with certain films not being acknowledged, not getting nominated this year in various categories. Chase Infinity Snub is really going to kind of bugged me for a while because I felt she was the heart and soul of that movie, and for her to hold her own against all-time greats was incredible. She really reminds me a lot of one of my favorite actresses of today, which is Gugu Mbatha. Many of you will know her from Belle and one of my favorite movies, Beyond the Lights, and Larry Crown, so many other films she's done over the years, Motherless Brooklyn. But Chase really reminds me of her. She has a similar sort of look and kind of aura on screen in a way like Gugu, but perhaps even better, maybe even a much higher ceiling as to where Chase can go, because I think Chase is really going to, as long as she keeps working as hard as she did in One Battle, she's going to easily be one of the very best actresses of her generation over the next couple of years. I think she'll get there. She's definitely worth keeping an eye on because I think it's going to be an incredible career we're in store for her. But we'll see what happens. Oscar Sunday on March 15th, but win or lose between Sinners or One Battle After Another, I'm not going to be mad whoever takes Best Picture. I do lean a little bit more towards One Battle only because while they're both masterpieces, they're both modern day classics, they're both destined to be considered all time great classics, I think, when it's all said and done. I love both films dearly, but One Battle was kind of like old school movie making at its finest. It took touches of so many brilliant all time great films from the past and just kind of made its own thing out of that. And the fact that it was filmed in VistaVision, a particular film style that hasn't been used in years, that was used on so many old Hollywood classic movies in the past, in particular The Searchers and, a handful of others too. That was an incredible feat. And, I would love to see it overall walk away with Best Picture and the deep message that it delivers too, as well as the incredible performances. But again, I won't be upset if Sinners takes it because it does very well deserve it. What Ryan Coogler and the entire cast and crew did with Sinners was nothing short of spectacular. Um, it's a movie that will stay with me for a long, long time. But I very, very slightly give the edge to One Battle, as I personally would just love to see that walk away with Best Picture. And then I'd love to see so many of the other films I enjoyed throughout the year, whether it be Frankenstein and Marty Supreme and you know, um, some of the others too just walk away with some recognition too. But we'll see what happens on March 15th. Hopefully, I'll get into a little bit more of a discussion and the review of some of these films too in the next several weeks. I'm a little preoccupied right now, doing a lot of films, or not films, but a lot of videos that are centered around the Michael Jackson biopic that will be releasing in April. I'm trying to do a lot of videos of karaoke live performances and recreating certain homages, tributes to some of the music videos and interviews Michael did throughout his career. They won't be exact. It won't be the exact costuming and the exact look for look, but I'm trying to get it as close as I can and just pay tribute still, and hopefully everybody will understand what it is I was trying to do with those videos. So I'm doing that up till about a week or so before the movie does release, toward the end of April, and we'll see what happens. But I'll definitely still be trying to do out of theater reactions for movies as well as um, a lot of things for the Oscars too, and just um, definitely keep you posted and let you know my overall thoughts and opinions on everything. Well, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts were on the snubs, as well as the surprises, the historical 16 Academy Award nominations for Sinners, which is a record that was a three-way tie that I never in my lifetime thought I'd ever see broken anytime soon, if ever. But that was very well deserved. Obviously, even One Battle came just one significant nomination short of tying that record, which it would have, had Chase been nominated. But I'm still very happy with everything, and overall, I think there's a lot of stuff that I am happy to see get acknowledged. But as is the case every year, there were some significant snubs that are hard to wrap your mind across. But that's always expected every year, unfortunately, when it comes to Oscar nominations. But let me know what your thoughts were, and we'll talk to you soon. And hopefully, we'll have more discussions regarding award season very soon. Well, until then, take care, guys. See you next time.